Okay, and we are live. Hey, everybody, what is up? And welcome back to the second workshop day session of our Brief to Website workshop series and challenge. So excited to be with you here today. Yesterday was so much fun. We've got amazing comments from you here in the chat and in the comments. It was so much fun, and I guess you've learned a lot and you had a good time as well. And I'm very excited to try to even surpass what we've had yesterday and have a really good time entertaining and educational with you here today. Let me shout out some of you guys watching live right now while people are still joining the live. We've got people from Haiti, people from the UK, people from Texas, French Caribbean, New Jersey. What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Good to see you all from the Maldives, India. What's up? What's up? What's up? Canada, Amsterdam, Pakistan. Nice, nice, nice. Philippines, Chile. So awesome to have all of you here with me today. So let me repeat kind of like the rules or the structure of this workshop that we're having here today. We're turning this brief. I've sent you this brief if you're registered on email or if you've downloaded from yesterday's session, a client brief for a company called Planco. It's a travel agency, kind of like a techie client, travel agency. And yesterday we went ahead and we turned that into a brand kit. Let me share my screen to show you basically what we've done yesterday. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. So yesterday we started off by reading the brief, which we have right here. We collected inspiration based on that brief. We turned it into a mood board. We then defined our color palette that we'll work with. We chose some fonts. We designed a logo. And now we have a full-on brand kit, which we will utilize today. Now, today we're going to work through, let me show you the agenda that I have for you for today. So today we're going to turn that brand kit into a website. I'm going to try to keep my times like I did yesterday. We're going to review the brand kit. Actually, I think we just did this right now. We're going to define the structure. We're only going to tackle the homepage. I think that's what we can do in this short challenge. So we'll tackle the structure of the homepage. We'll create wireframes. We'll go in and put in the content. And then we'll actually spend the majority of our time actually doing the design of the homepage, and we'll leave out some time for Q&A like we did yesterday. So this is for the Q&A. Now, before I get started, again, going back to the rules of the challenge, I'm going to try to cover the whole process in 1 hour. And again, 1 hour is not an ideal situation. I mean, it's very, very fast. Of course, with client work, this might take weeks of work, but I'm going to try to condense this into 1 hour, and then you're going to do your own interpretation, whether you do it in 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour, or over the weekend, how much time you have for this challenge and project. And you will submit this, or you can submit this, you can either submit the Figma files that you're working on or design files, or if you'll be building the actual website with us tomorrow on Webflow, you can send us the actual preview link, and then we'll pick the winners. Again, it's not mandatory to develop it in Webflow. You can just send us the design if you want to, and we'll pick the winners next Monday, so you can send by end of day on Sunday, and on Monday we'll pick the winners to win some AirPods Pro, and we're going to do a live stream, and we're going to review actually a lot of your submissions. So do submit, because you might get a lot of attention and views from people reviewing your work and maybe getting links to your website. So this is a huge opportunity for you. Do submit something. And as I said, usually we're not working that fast. We're also not learning this fast. So and teaching web design in 1 hour is a big challenge for me, as an instructor as well. So if you do want to dive into all the topics that we cover more in depth and realize how to do this the proper way for clients so that you can charge $10,000 for a website, it's a great opportunity to dive into one of our more in-depth courses. And we're running kind of a sale alongside with this promotion. And below this video, there's a secret code for an even bigger discount. So if you want, this can be a great opportunity for you to take your skills to the next level if you find this interesting and if you're interested in growing yourself as a professional web designer. Okay, with that said, I think we're ready to actually kick things off. So let me share my screen again, and we will get started. All right, so you can see my screen. My face is inside of that circle thing. Yesterday, most of the day, I was kind of like outside of the circle. I'll try to be more mindful today. Now, I'm still going to work on a new Figma template today. That's just going to help us kind of move through the steps. If you want to work alongside with me, you can download this template. I have a link for the clonable below this video as well. It's not mandatory. You can go ahead and do what I'm doing, but on your own file. It's just going to be helpful to kind of go through the motions. All right, so let's start off with what do we need to do? We do have a brand kit right now, which is useful, but how are we going to apply this? How are we going to turn this into a web design? So here, I want to first think about structure. Before I go into wireframing, and we'll talk about wireframing in a few minutes, I do want to start thinking about the role of each one of these sections. So you probably know every website or every page is divided into sections, and each section is basically has its own purpose or function. You're looking at it on your screen and it's there for a reason. It's there trying to convey kind of a message or to teach you something, or it has a purpose. It's like, think about a book. You have chapters in a book. If you have presentation, you have slides. And the sections in a website are basically kind of like this. You're taking people, as they're scrolling through the page, you're taking them through a presentation or a story. And you want to, obviously, we're trying to sell something here, or we have goals. So let's revert back into our client brief and see what the goals are. So Planco are looking to create a new website that gets people excited about exploring new destinations. And the main conversion goal is to start filling in the questionnaire. So this is what we're doing. We're selling them as, the agency to book your trip with. And we're going to try to sell them on why they should work with us, of course. And we're going to try to get them to fill in our questionnaire. Those are the goals. How are we going to do this? We're going to use each section in order to try to get them through this process of convincing them why they should be with us. Now, so let's start off by just thinking about each section that we're going to have on the homepage and why we need to have it there. Now, by the way, I'm not going to dive very deep into like the common structure of a homepage right now, but we do have multiple videos on our YouTube channel about kind of like the perfect structure for a homepage or a landing page, and you can check those out. But very quickly, let's start to think about them. So the first section, you might know that the first section is called a hero section. And, every first section is called a hero section. And all the first section in every, homepage have the same purpose, which is to know basically, who is this website? What do you do? What do you do? And then, why should I care? Why should I care? So that's in general, that is always true. No matter what website you design, you always want the hero section to answer these questions. So that is the purpose of the first section. So now they've done that, they realize, oh, it's a travel agency. I want to work with them. They moved into the second section. What do we want to talk there? A lot of times this would be kind of either explaining the product or maybe the benefits of the product or why it's so great or something like this. I think that in this case, this is a travel agency. And remember the goals that we have here. The goal was to get people excited about exploring new destinations. So I think the logical next step, if you're a travel agency, is maybe show a lot of locations, show a lot of kind of the destinations that people might want to, travel to. And you can say that's kind of like the product, right? And you can also say that's kind of like the benefit you might get to these places, and it will get them excited. So this section purpose, let's call it get them excited, and let's call this trip destinations. And I don't mind all of my typo destinations. I have typos even when I try not to type fast, and now I'm typing fast. Destinations, whatever. What was I saying? Okay, well, we want to get them excited here. What I wanted to say is this. The way I'm doing this right now and the section purpose that I'm giving each of these sections, this is my interpretation of the brief. This is not the only solution. And I encourage you, when you're thinking about this, just like when we did the design, and this was my interpretation of the brief, the structure and everything that we'll do today here is my interpretation, and I encourage you to go and give this your own twist on it. Okay, so we got them excited. What's next after that? I think it would make sense at this point to talk about, all right, so I understand you're planning trips, and I see we can take trips to very cool destinations. Probably here I should answer the question of why would I work with you, right? What makes you different or something like this. So let's call this why work with us. And this can be maybe kind of like an intro into the about section, and maybe this will take them into an about page or something like this. Now, after that, probably what I want to do, and I haven't done yet, is to build credibility, right? Social proof, showing other people that we're happy with our service, to help build trust and credibility. So let's call this build trust section. And this is basically going to be testimonials. There are, of course, a lot of ways to build trust, but social proof, meaning showing other people that vouch for you, is a really great way and a very common way to do this. So let's use this section to build trust. And after that, basically, it's probably let's do another call to action. So don't forget to get started now or fill in the questionnaire, which is the conversion goal. And then at the bottom, we probably have footer. Okay, so this is a very simple homepage, but this structure works. Okay, so now I basically know what's going to be the purpose of each one of these sections. And now we can move into the next step in the process, which is turning this into wireframes. Now, wireframes, I already have something here very, very basic. Wireframes is, the purpose of wireframes is what it is. First of all, it's a very ugly kind of like placeholder for the content that will happen, right? So this rectangular marks, there's going to be an image or an illustration or something here. This marks, there's going to be some text here. There's going to be some button here. Now, this is not design. And this also doesn't mean that this is the layout, right? Maybe it's going to be centered. Maybe it's, I don't know. But it does mean that we will need one image here. We will need one heading here, and we will need one button here. And this is going to help me understand, what does this, if I'm trying to achieve this purpose of explaining, who, what, and to get this purpose, what content elements do I need? Sometimes I will go ahead and develop these content elements myself. Sometimes I'll be working with my clients or ask them, to write the content or to deliver images or something like that. But I do want to know what I need. So that's the purpose, and basically show me the structure of the user experience. Again, this is not design. It doesn't mean that this is this font or this color. It doesn't mean that this is the layout. I'm just trying to get kind of like an overall structure for, the content that I will need. So let's think about this. This already looks basically like a good hero section, right? I'm going to explain, who they are. Is always important to have a logo. That's why you need a logo. And what's on this website is usually, you can see it throughout this navigation here at the top. This heading is probably going to explain what they do or what the unique value proposition is. Image going to show maybe the product or maybe a destination, and a button for a call to action. In this case, probably going to be something like fill in the questionnaire or something like this. So let's go ahead and complete this wireframe. So now we need to get them excited, show trip destinations. So what are we going to have in the second section? Probably going to have, every section usually has a heading. It's not as big as the first heading. First heading, the biggest heading in a website, is called H1 usually. So this is the second section, kind of probably going to be H2, which is a secondary. So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So this is probably going to be, a second heading for this, maybe like our destinations or something like this. And in general, I think if we're trying to convey trip destination, it's going to be some kind of a gallery, right? Now, I'm not sure what kind of gallery it's going to be. I don't know the layout yet. I don't know how many I will need. But let's, for now, just to keep it very, very simple. And I'm not trying to do this organized in any way. There's no grid here, spacing. I'm just trying to throw things in here. And by the way, I didn't say this, but there are tons of free wireframing kits out there, which already have a lot of sections pre-built that you can copy and paste. My favorite one, and it's also part of Flux, is Platforma. So you can Google Platforma wireframing kit if you want to work with that. But I'm not even using that right now. I'm just throwing things very, very simple right here. So this is probably going to be the second section. What else we've got here? Why work with us? I think at the end of the day, no matter how we're going to design this, it's going to be something like this, right? There's going to be text over there, and there's going to be text, maybe learn more button and an image, maybe not such H1 heading, maybe something like this, H2 heading, but it's probably going to be something like this. After that, we have the build trust testimonials. All right, so what is this normal structure of testimonials, right? So testimonials, let's say another heading, like what customers say about us. And then usually it's going to be like an image of a person and then a quote of what this person say. So I can just go ahead and maybe make a circle and bring in this text. And maybe this is like the paragraph. Maybe we're also going to have like the name of person. So this can be like one testimonial, and then maybe we have like 3 testimonials like this. Of course, as I said, this is not the final layout. Maybe it's going to be a slider, maybe some kind of a carousel or something, but I'm just putting in this as a placeholder to remind myself to ask my clients to bring me 3 photos of their clients with their names and their quotes, right? This is like telling me that I'm going to need this kind of content. What else do we have? We've built trust. Oh, one thing that I wanted to do, and I think I forgot to do, is I wanted another section to handle objections. Handle objections. This is really important in sales, right? People look at a product or something and they think about this, and then they have a question. They're like, yes, this is good for me, but what happens if this? What happens if I cancel? They're not sure about this, and they don't want to buy or get started because they have some kind of an objection. We can solve this a lot of times by having an FAQ. FAQ, frequently asked questions. What we are going to do is we're going to put all of their objections in questions and answers so that we can answer their objections and then hopefully get them to buy. So let's do an FAQ section as well. So we're in the wireframes. We've done that. Now we can do another one, which is going to be the FAQ. Now FAQ is, again, usually it's like questions, and maybe it's a lot of times it's this element that is called accordion, which means you only see this the question, and there are like 2 lines or something like this, and you can click it to open up and see the answer, so people can skim and find the relevant question to them. We don't want to overwhelm them with too much text. We just want them to help them skim and find the question that's bothering them. Then they're going to click it, and it's probably going to open up. So this can be an FAQ section. And then what do we have? We have a call to action. So a call to action is probably going to be something like, hey, it's time to get started, or something like this, just focused with maybe like a button. And yeah, that looks like a call to action section. And then a footer. So a footer, I'm just going to duplicate the navigation that we have here. Usually a lot of times a footer is mainly just, the logo and all the links. Sometimes if the website is heavy and there are more pages than you want to show in the main top navigation, the footer is where you will show the entire structure of the website, and all the pages, even the ones that you didn't show in the main navigation. But this is probably going to be a simple one, so I think this is going to be the footer. All right, so I think we're 10 minutes in and we have a whole wireframe for the page that we're going to build. So this was pretty quick, but overall, yeah, we have a wireframing standing. Let me take a break and tell me in the comments how you're liking today's session as well. All right. I see some questions about Webflow and stuff. So Webflow, we'll talk all things Webflow tomorrow. All right. So let's continue. All right. So now that we have this, before we can actually get started, we need to put in the content. And content mean let's actually write the text that we're going to be using, and let's bring in the images or assets that we will be using. By the way, for example, here I didn't put, because I did this really quick, but if this is destinations, maybe we need the name of the destination, like city, country, or something like this. So I did it really fast, but we might need this content as well in here. Okay, so now we need to go ahead and fill in this content. Now, in my case, I'm going to go ahead and do it myself. And actually, I did this ahead of time just to not bore you too much. But if I would work with clients, now, sometimes I would get product shots from them. Sometimes I would use things like, stock photography or something like this. And sometimes I would work with maybe a 3D designer or an illustrator to create these assets for me. But right now, I've just went ahead and basically what I did is, let's go ahead into content done. I've basically wrote down some text and put in, some images that I found in Unsplash. And I did use our brand kit to guide the type of images that I've brought. Of course, if I was going into, and this image specifically is interesting, right? I think it's an image from Norway. And I think if we go to Unsplash and we write here, for example, travel or explore Norway, I think, or maybe Norway, orange house. I just want to show you. I can't seem to find this image right now, but what I wanted to show you is that there is this image of this specific house. There are maybe 4 variations of this specific location in Norway, even just on Unsplash. And some of them are more happy and some of them are more grim and dim and have different color palettes. And I went ahead and picked the right one based on the mood board that we have created yesterday. This is where you actually get started at finding the appropriate assets for your project. Now, so this is how I picked the text and images, brought in images of testimonials. About the text, this is something that a lot of designers struggle with. They're not sure. They're not sure what to write. I'm not a copywriter, and I keep asking my clients to provide me with the text. They're not doing it, and the project is stuck. So my approach to this is always doing the heavy lifting for my clients. I say ahead of time, look, I'm not a copywriter, but I'm going to do some kind of a draft for you to just so that we have something to design with. And by me writing a kind of a draft for them also gives them kind of like, makes it much easier for them to correct what I already wrote versus writing it from scratch. So I always do the basic copywriting myself. And by the way, this is a service. If you know how to create the content for the website, whether it's the copywriting or you take images for them, like photography, a lot of times I would take the photography of the team in their office. This is something that you can charge extra money for, and this is super, super fun. So for now, you can just go ahead and make up the text. Don't worry about this too much. You can see that I wrote here, let us plan your next trip. Fill in questionnaire, our featured locations, about us, not your typical travel agency, and so forth. Again, this is, we're designers right now, and we're not too worried about the copywriting, so just do something. And and now that this is ready, now it's ready and ugly, I should say, but this is just core content. Now we can take this content and we can go ahead and start designing it. So what I would do is right now, I would take this content. Let's go here into the design page. paste that, actually go ahead and bring this brand kit, because now we're actually going to have to start working with our design and get started designing. So let's see what we have. First of all, let's go ahead and change, the fonts that we have here. Let's change them to Poppins, which is the font that we chose to work with, right? This is Poppins semi-bold. What we have here, yeah, Poppins semi-bold. This is great. I'm not finalizing, the typography yet. We'll do this in a second. This is obviously part of the design. Let's go ahead and put in the logo. So right now, let's take this light logo. Let's bring that up here. And okay, so before I go ahead and here's the kind of like meta of what I'm trying to do this right now. And yesterday I was talking about this a lot, that most of our work as designers is creating a lot of possibilities and then choosing the one for us, right? So I was picking up a lot of different fonts, making the final choice, looking for a lot of inspiration, then picking the inspiration that I will want to use. So here, what I am going to do is I'm going to basically, let's give this some kind of a background color, maybe just white. I want to start creating options of the design for the hero section. Okay, so let's bring this all the way down. Now let's copy this thing. Let's group that and let's copy it here. Now I'm moving away from my design. Now I want to start, actually, let me bring this up so we have all of our brand kit to work with. Now I want to start creating variations. Remember I told you maybe this is not the final design. All right, so what is the final design? First of all, actually, before I do this, now it's actually a good time to start talking about the grid. And working with the grid is something to make sure that there's a cohesive design and structure and alignment throughout our page. So here's how I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick the page. I'm going to add a layout grid here. Not grid, I actually want columns. And I'm going to work with 12 columns, which is super, super common in web design. That's because 12 is divided by a lot of numbers. I'm going to do center so that they are centered. And let's make something like this. Let me measure kind of like what's the width of this area. It is about 1200 pixels. I think this is pretty good for a container. So the way I'm going to use this is now it's going to make sure that all of our content right now is aligned here to the grid. This is aligned to the grid, this as well. Maybe I want this to be, half. So if this is 3 and then 3, then maybe I'm going to make the image kind of bigger so that it's 6 columns and, this is 5 columns or 6 columns. I can decide later on. But this is kind of like a good time to start making sure that all of these following sections are going to align to the same grid. So now let's start talking about the design itself. So one thing I can do is, have this layout, right? The layout that the boring layout, right? It's kind of like an image that we have here. I can start playing around with it. Now I can say, hey, maybe should this be white, or maybe this should be, this color. Oh, sorry. Maybe we want to have this very light color. How does that look? Maybe it's nice. Maybe I can even create multiple copies so I can compare them. So I have one with white. Maybe I have one that is completely the other way around, right? So maybe it's dark background and the text here is using these colors. And the buttons, let's see, buttons are going to be the orange color that we have here. Okay, so this is okay. Now I can start, deciding. Of course, I think the text here needs to be black so that there is contrast. Not this, just the text. Text, fill, black. Okay. So here's another option. Of course, here I'm going to have to bring in the light logo. So already I have 3 options, and this is just for the color, right? Okay, so this is the first thing to try to see what do you like more, right? Now I'm going to have to make all of this white and all of these orange. Okay, so this is option number 1, created multiple variation. Which one do I like? Can make one with the orange background, but my bet is it's not going to be that good. Okay, let's say for this one, I like the dark one to get started with. Okay, what am I doing now? I'm duplicating this to create myself more options. So what other options do I have for layout? So this is one where the image is just like this. Another one can maybe be that the image is like almost full screen, or maybe like half the screen. The image takes up maybe all of the layout, but there is kind of like a top for the navigation that is darker, maybe something like this. Oops, I forgot to bring in the logo. Let's bring the logo to the top. Whoop. Let's see. Okay. Let's send this to the back. God damn it. Well, it's a little bit messy because I wasn't working properly with, layers. So I'm going to try to put all of these grouped together. And like this. This is nice. Okay. So now we have this option for a layout. Maybe we want to have also a centered option. So maybe let's duplicate this actually with the navigation. And let's say what happens when the image in the background is full, full scale, something like this. And maybe we need to reduce the opacity of the image, or let's see what we're going to do here. Let's bring this, let's take all of this and try to center all of this content. This, centered, align centered, group it, center to this. Okay, let's put it this way. And let's put this behind everything. Let's put this behind, yep. And let's reduce this. I don't even know if we need to reduce this. Maybe we don't need to reduce this. Maybe it's just like this. Maybe this has a little bit of opacity. So now you can see that I'm starting to play around with multiple layouts. Let's bring in the logo here. Now, quite like I said the last time, how many options you have and how long you keep playing this. Let's create options. I like this option. Let's duplicate this and let's create more options. How long do we keep with that? Well, as long as we have time. So that's really depends on the budget and the timeline that you have on the project. Otherwise, this can go on forever. And the more time you have, obviously, you will get to experiment with more and more details. Let's keep playing with this, and you will see how, the more time I have, let's say I want to keep going with this one. How about we start exploring, hey, maybe we should have round corners. Okay? Maybe this button needs to have round corners as well. Let's test this out. How much round corners? Of course, we can just talk about the round corners. How much padding does this button need? I mean, maybe we can add a little bit more padding like this, a little bit more padding. Obviously, the more, if it looks like this, it looks different than, with more padding, it looks different from less padding. So it's worth creating options for this. Now, this is where also going back into my mood board is very helpful, because you want to make sure that you are actually aligned with this. And I'm looking at this and I see, yes, actually, you know what? I did choose something with round corners. So I should probably keep, the round corners. Probably round corners is, a good idea. If that's kind of like the brand that I want to create. Now, in this case, this is, pretty good and solid, but it's maybe a little bit boring. So we can try and break out we can try to break out the layout with maybe something like bringing in this rectangular and put it in the background, and that we can like add something to grab a little bit more attention here and break the layout a little bit. Of course, as I said, we can now say, how do I like it without this thing? How do I like it with this thing? How do I like it when this thing is, all the way across? How do I like it when this thing is maybe all the way to the top? I don't know. I'm not sure this is not going to work, but maybe just like this. I don't know. Each one of them, or maybe let's do this differently. Maybe it's kind of like a drop shadowy kind of thing, right? Maybe it has round corner and it's kind of like a drop shadow. So all of these things can create tremendous differences. One more thing that I can do, and I think, looking back at my mood board, I had this thing here with like topography and of maps, like this kind of thing that looks like a map, the height of mountains and stuff like this. So one thing that I went ahead and do is I found this free resource of this lines of topography. Now, this is, by the way, this is a great website if you're not familiar with it. It's called FreePeak. It has a lot of photos and vectors that you can download and use for free. There is kind of like a licensing. If you use it for free, you need to add a credit, but you can have it like really small somewhere on the website. But if you want to remove the credit, you can pay them or whatever. So I went ahead and downloaded this, and let's go ahead and try to bring this into our Figma file right here. Let's see where we are. Let's go ahead and bring this. Where is it? Map lines. All right. So map lines, we have it here. Let's go ahead and see if I'm trying to bring this up maybe below the images, maybe reduce the opacity by a lot to make things readable. So now I can play around with this and create more an interesting texture right here to make this look like a travel map or something like this. And now I see that probably these buttons need to have a bolder font. So maybe semi-bold from here. Maybe the text should be white. Yeah, text can be white. So these are things that I'm going to play around with. Now that I have a pretty much defined style here, of course, I can go ahead and apply it to other buttons that we have here. Maybe make these a bit smaller. Maybe add a little bit of padding here. Now here, I wrote like two things, get started and how it works. Most times you will have multiple types of buttons. So one is the primary call to action, and we've decided how this looks like. But if this is how it works, is maybe a secondary call to action, then maybe we don't want to fill it. Maybe we want to do kind of like a stroke. This is called a ghost button, where it's just, I can either make this white or orange. Now it takes up kind of like less attention, so lower hierarchy. And and it looks better. Okay, so as you saw, we can keep playing around as long as we have time. But here's something, if you really want to manage your projects well, here's how I would do this. I would basically say, okay, I have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 6 sections. Let's say I have 6 sections. Now, how much time do I have for this project, right? And this can be 2 weeks, this can be 1 week, this can be 3 days, and this can be like 2 hours. So I'm going to do like, if I have 2 hours, okay, so 2 hours, 120 minutes divided by 6 sections. Basically, I have 20 minutes per section. So I know, and I can put like a timer, I get to experiment and create options for like 20 minutes. By the end of the 20 minutes, all right, here's the option. This is the option that I like best. Put that option in, right? Take this, copy it, put it inside the design. Fantastic. Bam, put it in here. And let's see if it's on the grid. It's not on the grid, so it's a good thing that we have the grid. I definitely need to put this map way behind all these other things, and also probably lock it. So take all these things, align them to make sure that we're all aligned to the grid. And looks good. Now I can move into the second section. And let me do the same thing that we've done previously, which is send this way to the back, and then copy all of these things here, group them, copy this, take this down here, and say, all right, let's go ahead and design the second section. Now, usually you would want to create some kind of contrast, not always, but a lot of times you would want to create contrast between the sections. So I wouldn't make this dark as well. Maybe this one, I'm going to choose this super, I don't know, either white or this very thin kind of like lines. Here, I also don't have pop-ins set up yet, pop-ins. Now now I'm still playing around, and I'm not sure about the size of typography. That's also something that I will be experimenting with. But as you move down the sections, you might want to start considering using styles, like really taking this here in Figma and creating a text style from it. So we have one for H1, for example. We can create one for H2 so that in other sections, I can just apply this text style, and I'll make sure that all of the size of all of my H2 or headings are consistent. So now I have this, like, how many types of galleries can I create? A lot, actually, right? And if you're not sure, you can always go and Google like website gallery examples and Google that and see what you get, right? If you want to get some inspiration. So we can have a grid that's like totally one next to another. We can have them in like rectangulars where sometimes one of them is big. We can have them this way. We can have them as cards. We can have them as, carousels like this, which called cover flow, like iPhone used to have. We can have these kinds of like scrolling galleries. So there are a lot of options to try. And this is just Google. Of course, you can go into Dribbble or Behance and do like gallery and see well-designed examples. So, we can go ahead and now start doing this. So, okay, now we already know that we have like round corners because we've established this design choice right here. So I can go ahead and, what did I do? I removed the opacity. I can go ahead and create, also actually, I think I removed this, but it's worth having kind of like the grid just so that I know that if we are going to use like 3 columns, I would want to make sure that each of them is maybe 4 columns, to make sure that there is consistency with the grid above. Maybe at this point I see, well, you know what? It looks like there's not enough space between the columns, right? So let's go here and adjust our grid. Go here and maybe adjust the gutter from 20. Let's do a gutter of 40. So now we're going to reduce back the size. And let's see now how that looks like. So now I'm going to adjust this way. And okay. So this is option number 1, I guess. Let's put this here. And we have here, let's say this is, I didn't put in the content here, but let's say this is city in Norway. And let's make sure that the font is Poppins. And also, I think it would probably be cool to have like an icon that mentions that this is the location. So I think I've shared with you yesterday, Icon Finder, which is one of my favorite websites for finding icons. So maybe let's download a location pin. Let's do free. Let's do solid. And all right, so all of these can work. Let's go ahead and we're in SVG, copy SVG to clipboard, back to Figma, paste it, bam. I'm just going to remove the frame and take this object in, and I already have my colors defined, right? So maybe we'll do this like orange, and we have this. So now we have one design, right? One sort of design for 3-column grid. Let's go ahead and do this. And of course, I said round corners. So let's pick them and add some round corners. But, okay, now that the grid is set and everything is okay, I can duplicate this and I can say, okay, so this is one option, maybe another option. And I guess if we have more, if we have like 6, so right now, let's go ahead and group. If we have 6, right now it's going to look like this, right? And I missed the icon when I copied, but never mind. So this is one option. Maybe another option is maybe create some kind of like a Masonry grid. Are you familiar with Masonry grid? This is basically like where you have different photos in different sizes. Not sure why this is duplicated. And the next one is, let's go ahead and the next image is kind of like starting over here. So this is a grid that is not exactly similar in width, right? And maybe here we want to say, well, this is kind of like a card thing. So let's bring these over the top and make them white. Maybe I'll need kind of like a gradient to make sure that they are readable. And this is, another type of grid that we can create here. So this can be another kind of like a different layout. This is very kind of like grid. Another option. Maybe another option is to have like a carousel, right? So maybe what we need is, let's take these images. Let's say that they're like this, but there are also, images coming here and images coming here. And, they're going to be, let's go ahead and mask them just so that we can see how that looks. So let's do this and mask them. I think I'm picking the wrong selection. So let's use mask. Nope. I should have brought them to the top. Use mask. All right. So maybe this can be nice. And now I can maybe put some arrows like next, previous, and next. Right. So let's put some arrows. And bring an arrow. Whatever. Let's say this arrow, copy to clipboard. Bring the arrows here. And so maybe this is another option. So as I've mentioned earlier, the options are actually infinite, and you have to really block your time, put it on timer and say, I've got 20 minutes for this section. Let's play around with it. All right, 20 minutes are up. Which one is the best option? All right, I'm moving forward with this. So budget your time and then keep playing, keep exploring every single option. I do want to show you what we came up with after playing around with everything. So this is our end result. Let me share this with you. This is for this section. Second section, about us, testimonials, frequently asked questions, call to action, and a footer. And you've seen the way that we get to these results by just keep exploring more and more and more options. All right. So with that, this is the process. Let me jump right back here. And yeah, let's do some Q&A. You've got questions about the design process that I've covered today, web design process in general. Let me open up my questions doc. If you haven't put your questions, you can put them in the chat, and I'm going to start working through them right now. Hopefully, I don't know if I'll get to all of them, but wait a second. Probably not going to get to all of them, but I'll do my best to get to as many as possible. And give me a second to get to my questions doc, which I've closed, but here it is. All right. So, also let me know in the comments, how is the stream so far? And a reminder that if you're interested in going very deep into this process, including all of the deep dive into typography and color and how to choose the right images and so forth, please check our full-on courses with the special discount code in the description below. All right. Questions. So first one from Ivan. Did Figma change the way we create hover states with components? I'm trying to prototype link to hover state, but it doesn't work. It seems like prototyping between variations, it doesn't work. I want to say I do not know. Like recently, I just recorded like the tutorial on hover state and animations just like a week or two ago, and it all worked fine. So I'm not sure if this is something really new. I'm not sure. This is too technical for me to answer right now. Don't remember anything changing. Please tell us how to choose size and space. All right, so this goes into the topic of basically layout and how to lay out things properly so that you get good spacing and good hierarchy. I do recommend, in the last months, Matt from our team has been putting up fantastic videos. It's kind of like a guide to layout. It's a 3-part series, I think, and it goes exactly into the topic of spacing and sizing and all of these frameworks. So I hope this can answer your questions. All right, Pamela, is it okay to use this as a portfolio piece, even if it will be a homepage only? I'm thinking it might be better to have all the pages designed. What do you think? Pamela, I think this is okay. I mean, I think people are, they looking at the homepage, they can very quickly assess your design capabilities. You can, of course, if you want to practice your design, if you want to practice building in Webflow, you can go ahead and develop all the pages. But I do think that a lot of times in a portfolio, it's good enough to get a screenshot or maybe, the full view of a homepage. I do think that it's enough. So depends on how much time and effort you want to invest, but I think it's enough for your portfolio. Kayo, for content, which one must we focus on, visitors or SEO? It's a good question. I don't think, first of all, it really depends. Let's start off with the question, is SEO important? And the truth is, it's not for everybody, right? For example, our website, we get most of our traffic through YouTube. A lot of other businesses, they get their traffic through ads. So search engine optimization is kind of like a strategy for specific websites. A lot of times it's maybe for local websites. So if you're a lawyer in a specific town and you want people who are searching for lawyer in a specific town, you want to know that they can find you, but it's not super important for everybody. So number one is you need to understand how important SEO is in the strategy and the marketing strategy of the business that you're working with. Second of all, you can't really fool Google, because if you're writing for an SEO and people go into the website and they don't want to read the text, If the text is not relevant to them, if the text doesn't answer their question, they're not going to stay on the website and they're going to leave and they're not going to purchase. So Google will see that people are leaving fast, and then they will say, well, it's not a good question, it's not a good website, and they're going to reduce the ranking of this page. So again, I'm not an SEO expert, but I do think you need to write to answer people's questions, right? So that should be the focus of the copy. Noel, do you show the clients the iterations and let them have any say on the choice? Not on what I showed today, but on the I do usually show two creative directions. So I would create two different and very distinct options of mood boards and brand kits like we did yesterday. And I will make kind of like a mock-up of how a website is going to look like using this mood board and brand direction. And so I will show two very, very distinct options from a branding perspective. I'm not going to show them three options of hero sections and going to ask their opinion about this, because it's technical. It's like, unless they really, really want to make these choices, this is just like, all of them should, be functionally well and answer the purpose, which is answer the question, for example, who is this for? Like the copy should be right. The imagery should be right. Maybe you want to show them like two options with two different copy options or two different content options. That's meaningful to have their feedback on. But if it's centered or left aligned, I mean, this is just aesthetic, and I think they're paying you to solve this question and not just show them and bore them with this. Now, some clients might be annoying, or you might want to show them, but usually I wouldn't show them like these kind of options. Oh, here's a button without round corners and here's a button with round corners. What do you think? I mean, you're getting paid to solve these problems. So, I mean, I don't think you should be showing this to them. Eden, is it okay to have 3 orange call to actions on one page? So ideally, you wouldn't want to have like 3 orange call to action grabbing your attention. In this case, first of all, I removed the orange from here, and 2 calls to action. I mean, this should be primary. This should probably be smaller, right? Like, and I can make this smaller with a little bit less padding. I think in the final design, yeah, it is a little bit smaller, but yeah, it should be contrasted. This is okay, but mainly here you wouldn't see like 2 or 3, on a section. So ideally 1, 2 is okay, maybe here in the hero section, and I would define them using size. But other than that, 3 does sound like a lot. Oh, by the way, I'm talking about the design, and I think I'm not sharing my screen. So let me share my screen again. So here in this design, this button is no longer orange. So there are 2 orange buttons here. One is bigger than the other one, which is like primary and secondary. In all other sections, there is mainly just 1 primary button. So 3 is a lot. I wouldn't do 3. 2 is maybe okay. All right. Do you use Iconify plugin or something like that? No, I do not. I think I just showed my process. I use Icon Finder, but there are good plugins and stuff like that. I'm not familiar with Iconify. Niranjan, how should we also make the layouts responsive for the workshop, or just web view is fine considering the time? I'm not sure what you're showing me. The camera is moved to the second camera. Not sure why though. Okay. Well, we're in the last few minutes, so I'm not gonna fix this right now. Yeah, John just told me that the camera moved to the other camera. Not sure why. Oh, here it is. This looks better, I think. Okay. Don't know why this happened. I probably clicked something. Anyway, sorry about that. Responsiveness. This is a good question. Let's wrap up with the question of responsiveness. You can make responsive layouts. I think for the scope of this project, maybe I'm going to go into responsiveness a little bit tomorrow when I'm going to develop in Webflow, and I'm going to show how I'm thinking about this. But it's not mandatory. I realize it might be a lot to start thinking about responsiveness of the website right now. If you're just doing design for this challenge, website design is enough. If you want to work through actually developing this with Webflow, then tomorrow we will talk a little bit about making the website responsive. And I have to just tell you the truth. I'm personally, when I'm designing, I'm usually not designing, the responsive layout in Figma, because I just do it kind of like in my head and I just make the responsive version when I'm building in Webflow. So that's just like my quick process, but obviously you can, and sometimes if you want to communicate with clients, you should also make the responsive version in Figma. So I hope that answers the questions. All right, so with that said, we are out of time for today's session. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you'll submit your version of the design by Sunday end of day. And I hope you get the chance to and this opportunity to use the secret code below this video if you're interested in one of our full-on courses. And I'm looking forward to seeing you here tomorrow for the session of taking this design that we did and building it in Webflow. Have a super rest of the day, and I'll catch you tomorrow.